So we're trying to make a longer video to explain this problem that I've made 100 videos about, and that is that the general population, the regular person, is learning philosophy from science. So the regular person tunes in, and the thing they consume is science from a scientist, from a hard scientist. And then they get confused because they think that's a philosophy answer. So I've given some people some really good examples. My favorite one is Robert Sapolsky because I don't know, bro. He pisses me off the most. He really does. This is a hard scientist. This is a guy that's a climate donutologist. No, he's a let me read it. Neuroendocrinologist, which means he studies the effect of hormones on neurons inside the brain. It's very specific hard science. He was trained to do that, and he went to Africa and he studied my ex-girlfriends, the lower primates. He studied monkeys. And then somehow he transitioned from that to writing the book Determined, which a lot of people have read and which a lot of people use as a kind of guide for arguing online, making claims, and in some sense, building their own personal philosophy related to things like free will. Because free will, when you think about it, really dictates a lot of the other elements of all these fundamental debates. If you don't have free will, you can't have law. You can't hold people responsible, was what we talked about with Sapolsky. But it changes what it means to have consciousness. What is consciousness if it's not an agentic, um, I don't know, entity of some sort? If your consciousness can't decide anything, if you are merely just products of cellular activity, then you don't have a self. The argument that you're not a self, that it's an illusion that's created by repetition. This is, of course, was David Hume started that idea, but it's built into science now because if you can prove these things about the limitations of what humans are relative to um, what's called physicalism, the physical activity. That's it. If that's all you are, it changes how you think about all these things. So Sapolsky writes the book Determined to really make this, classic, clear, organized opinion. And my claim is just that it's a hard scientist that wants you to digest it as philosophy. So you don't look at free will in the laboratory under a microscope. No way to do it. There's no way. The reason science and philosophy are different, I guess if you don't understand that, go watch my videos. That's a lot of the complaints I get are people that don't even know there's a difference. And so they just think they're the same thing. They think, science has turned into philosophy or whatever. Science is more valuable, so it's replaced it, but it comes from it. When really philosophy, just natural philosophy 300 years ago, morphed into or branched off into the different kinds of sciences. And the way it was explained to me in grad school was more like when something becomes physicalized and understandable and measurable in those empirical ways. Empirical means just your senses, nothing else. You take in the data, which basically means you see something. You can just use that kind of example. When it gets to that point, it branches off into a science with that name. That's where psychology came from. When the when the behavior, because psychology is really about behavior and neuroscience is about brain, and they both became sciences when the mysticism changed into something that could be studied scientifically, because science does require you, you know, um, not literally, but figuratively, to look at something under a microscope. And you can't look at free will, you can't look at consciousness because we don't know what it is. And it's such an experiential, subjectivized, or truly subjective phenomenon that you can't apply the scientific method to it. So it's all a kind of category thing that we're doing where we fail to understand the difference. And then we take those science answers that people like Sapolsky are selling to us, and we translate that into our understanding of what philosophy even is. So this is Bad Philosophy Professor. If you subscribe to this channel already, I know most of you do. It is because um, we're doing two things. We're trying to do new stuff, even though it's usually a regurgitation of old stuff, but we're also trying to do it actively rather than just passively regurgitating things. We're trying to create, do, show, innovate, things like that. Because I'm so great and smart, I can do all these wonderful words that mean great things. So if you like it, subscribe. This particular longer video, I haven't done a longer video in like 2 weeks because I've been doing shorts, is about Robert Sapolsky. His book Determined is hell-bent on limiting man to being a product of physical activity. And as a hard scientist, he's making that, which is a very specific philosophy claim, because it takes into account the other things. So if you're saying you're physical activity, which you are, as a scientist, if you're saying that and you're eliminating everything else, in some sense, you're saying you know something about the everything else, which you don't. As a scientist, you don't know anything about consciousness. You make assumptions about it in your head, but that's itself philosophy. You're saying it's nothing, it's an illusion. Okay, well, that claims philosophy. You're not a philosopher. If you want to make that claim, that's fine if you believe it, but you don't believe it as a scientist. I think that's the key we're getting at. I hope you've made it this far in the video, because that's a good concept that you have to know that category difference or change. You have to know when you've left your study of the hormonal implications within the neuron cells. Like when you leave that and you go to metaphysics is fake, the self is an illusion. When you make that jump, you need to know the difference, like Einstein did, and maybe make that clear to your audience. Because my point, of course, that's the point of this whole thing, is to replace that process with something better. And so if you're going to make a claim you don't have free will, let's make it in philosophy, and let's use the tools that you learn here on Bad Professor's channel. So here's some quotes from Sapolsky. I want to add this. I've made a couple of short videos because I think this is so funny. And I called it what happens when science minded social media people become emboldened by philosophical curiosity. This is an academic paper title. So a quote from Sapolsky that I think is interesting, in the fact that it's wrong is interesting. And the quote is, "We don't punish for justice, we do it for dopamine." So I made a whole video about this, a short one. It basically means we get a thrill out of punishment, but that doesn't mean it's right. He's making a lot of claims here that are ethics. Of course, he's not an ethicist, not a philosopher, didn't study this. As far as I know, knows zero. You know, he knows less than you do, because you're probably tuned in because you read some Aristotle. But he's saying we get a thrill from the punishment, which doesn't just mean like an amusement park ride. It means like you get satisfaction and a thrill, in a sense, from the retribution, the vengeance, whatever. And that's the only thing. That's what this is his quote, not mine. So he ignores the fact that you would do it as a deterrent effect. So a quote, not even a paraphrase, is in from Determined, the book, and it's, quote, "Suppose trials were abolished, no prisons, no prisoners, no responsibility in a moral sense." So what, from a philosophy perspective, which I'm assuming he didn't look at it from, or he wouldn't have written it, it means there's no good or bad. It means in a real concrete way, in a real substantial objective ethics way, we can't even claim a distinction between good and bad. And so when he starts to break down guilt and praise, and says guilt and praise are illusions, basically, he means that very thing. He means we can't make these claims objectively. So another quote, because I'm going to get to this praise thing, is, "The only logical conclusion from all of this is this twofold," in the conclusion from biological determinism. And the twofold things are, quote, "You've got to get rid of everything that resembles the criminal justice system." Gone, bro, gone. But two, you also need to get rid of meritocracy, which means rewarding people for doing good things, which means he's very aware that praise is as bad as guilt and punishment, and neither one of them are real. This is what he says, not me. Like this, I don't need to criticize. He may look like the guy from Harry Potter, but he talks like the guy from Harry Potter. I hate Harry Potter. So a neuroscientist from Dartmouth named Peter Z. TSE, maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, quote, says, "If Sapolsky's ideas were widely accepted, they would lead to profound societal changes, not the least within the criminal justice system." So a very good summation of kind of what I'm saying. But what Sapolsky himself is saying, he's not beating around the bush. He's saying get rid of good and bad. He's saying don't punish people. Quote unquote, "The criminal justice system makes no sense at all." And quote, "And the proposal I sent to them was entitled something like, 'Why the criminal justice system should be abolished.'" These are quotes from him. But again, same thing. Get rid of the criminality, the prisons, the prison mentality. I don't know what we're supposed to do with the criminals. He's saying we should sequester them away, which not in a prison. Where do we sequester? Like, no practical thinking, no training in ethics and even politics and management of societies, which would be a completely different soft science. He doesn't seem to understand any of this stuff. I'm going to end this video. I hope you guys see where I'm coming from with the science philosophy videos, with these videos where I really start almost every one of them saying, know the difference. If you're a scientist talking online, know when you are teaching something that is actually outside of your domain. That's really sums it all up right there. Bad Professor, like and subscribe. Come back, tell me how bad my hair is, and send food. Thanks for coming.